Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel, and thanks for logging on. If you enjoy these videos, do me a favor and subscribe to our YouTube channel right here at Watchbox Reviews. I'd really appreciate it, and I promise to update daily. If you like this watch, you can purchase it on our website, thewatchbox.com, where you can buy, trade, and sell luxury watches, thewatchbox.com. Today we are discussing a gorgeous Omega Constellation Globemaster, 39mm in a combination of stainless steel and Omega's proprietary Sedna fade-resistant red gold. The combination of the pie pan blue dial, the rose accents, and the predominantly steel case with small polished highlights to break up its satin-finished swaths simply compels me to recall the original pie pan Constellation, and indeed this watch is a nod to those who never got over the 1982 Manhattan or Griffin claw Connie. This is one for the classicists. So the Neo pie pan, the Globemaster, debuted at Bezel World 2015, and the sizing is perfect for my 16 centimeter wrist. 16 centimeters in circumference, I wear the 39mm case quite easily. It's not a thin watch, but it's not a thick watch. As you'll find, it sits a reasonable 12.9 millimeters above the wrist, and the timepiece is relatively short cropped from end to end. I actually find it's easier to wear on the bracelet than the strap because the strap has flare. It fights the curve of your wrist. End link to end link, this one has a rather sizable 52.5 millimeter stance, but the case itself, if you just include the case, is a very compact 46.9. So if you put a 20mm strap on this watch, not the Omega factory piece, but a 20mm NATO or aftermarket leather piece from ABP or Camille Fournet, you'll find that you could wear this watch on a wrist as small as 13.5 centimeters circumference. On the bracelet, I'm going to say probably 14 centimeters circumference, the smallest viable wrist size. And you'll also find that it is a substantial piece. Omega is lockstep with Rolex these days in terms of case, bracelet, and clasp quality. Get a little bit closer. Let's get some more light now that the watch is off the wrist. And you can see that the bracelet is gorgeous. First of all, the links have a wonderfully tight tolerance between them, although you'll see from the underside that big channels have been created underneath the links to avoid pinching skin or pulling hair. But from the top, it's almost like mail, almost like mailed armor on a knight. Now you will note there is a Sedna Gold center, there are satin finished outers, but look at this! A transitional polished bevel on a modern Omega product. Now yes, I know a machine laid that down, but I appreciate that Omega chose to incorporate it into the design. It's a lot harder to do something like that, even mechanically, than to simply square off the flanks with satin and square off the tops with satin. It's beautiful, it's unnecessary, and I love it for those reasons. Now the clasp is substantial, but it's not a sports clasp. Twin trigger release, it does close sequentially, one side after the other. Now the twin triggers are your ace in the hole here because they ensure that this watch cannot fly open on the wrist. You need to depress both triggers to make sure that this pops open fully. So you have that measure of security. And it is a sports watch, 100 meters water resistant with a loomed dial and an automatic caliber. This is a sports watch, very comfortable on the wrist, all removable links sized with screws. And you can see that there is a rather generous allocation of removable links, not just on the one side, on both. So you can find a very good fit and precisely tailor this one to your wrist. Now you will note, and this is why I say it's easier to wear this on a small wrist if you put it on the Omega factory bracelet than the strap. The strap is stiff and flares. The bracelet can be pulled straight down. The case lines are gorgeous. As you can see, satin on the flank with a very small polished hairline bevel. And I'm going to get a little bit closer here. You know satin finished flanks, satin tops, and polished bevels from the Seamasters and the Speedmasters. This is a different aesthetic. The end of the lugs themselves have a squared off profile. The bevel is thin, it's hairline, but I appreciate that it runs the full case band because it adds elegance. And because the case band is stepped out from the case back as well as the physically distinct bezel, it appears a lot thinner in profile than it really is. The watch might be 12.9 millimeters thick, but the aesthetic on the wrist is far slimmer. The bezel is beautifully faceted, and it's not a Rolex style faceting, and I can prove that because I actually have a Rolex red gold faceted bezel right here. You can see it's broader and the individual facets are larger and deeper. Omega uses more of a micro faceting and the bezel has more definition. It's knife edged rather than being a simple conical profile like on the Rolex with a polished underside. It's gorgeous and it glitters like jewelry but with a different kind of micro glint than you'll find on the macro glinting, almost gem-like facets of the Rolex. This dial is sensational. It's essentially the rebirth of the Pi Pan constellations. Omega enthusiasts know Pi Pan Connies. If you don't, open a different window, Google it, keep me streaming. It's richly appointed with a sunburst blue and all applied rose gold indices, rose gold Omega marquee and logo, rose gold hands, and a rose gold star because the constellation is celestial in its theming, and the name itself comes from the observatory chronometer certification bestowed on the original. And you can see the symbol of the original. This would have been on the case back of an old 1952 Connie, and so too is it on the back of the Connie Globemaster. The script is discreet. It's florid but small, so you have a highly stylized Globemaster logo, but it's subdued. All of the text on the dial is subdued, whereas Rolex is inclined to put huge blocks of branding and graphics. Omega, far more discreet. I love the anniversary Daytona, but Omega did this right. The faceting of the outer hour track is also gorgeous, and it adds another focal plane to the dial. Note the stepped aperture for the date at 6 o'clock, providing a little bit of a transition from the sheer of the dial down to the plane of the silver on black date disc. It's nicely balanced as it anchors the dial at 6 o'clock. Now let's turn towards the light a bit and showcase some of the features of the caliber 8900 master chronometer. First, hacking or stop seconds. You can just stop the movement and synchronize it to a time. It's a COSC chronometer and it's a Matas chronometer. We'll talk about that in a moment. You can see that the time zone function is retained from the previous 8500, which was not a Matas chronometer, and you can actually drive the date forward or backwards, jumping time zones as you cross the international date line or simply travel, and you'll note it does not stop the movement. It does not interrupt the time telling of the watch. This is a wonderful feature for those who will frequently travel. It's also important to note that the 100-meter water resistance encloses a movement that is impressively deluxe. Twin mainspring barrels in series, you can see them underneath the barrel bridge, 60-hour power reserve, but more importantly, because of the twin barrels, a very even torque release from maximum wind to minimum wind for precision. 39 joules, bidirectional winding for smoothness. You can see that the balance bridge is a full bridge, anchored on both sides by a black oxidized screw, not a single-sided half bridge. You also note it's free-sprung, the two features imparting shock resistance. 25,200 vibrations per hour is the beat rate. It's quirky, it's unique to the co-axial system. There are very few other watches like the Armstrong Mirrored Force Resonance and the Patek Philippe Grandmaster Chime that actually share this beat rate. But this features a silicon hairspring, so in addition to the quirky beat rate and the coaxial architecture, it is also very anti-magnetic to the point that it can be considered amagnetic. Now about the coaxial. It is a multi-axial spindle featuring escape wheels and tangential contact surfaces designed by the late independent watchmaker George Daniels and industrialized by Omega and ETA. It delivers on the promise of better timing stability in the short term and the long term while also reducing maintenance requirements and helping this watch to achieve its 60-hour power reserve. There's a lot to love here, including a relatively beautiful machine finish, as there is a spiral arabesque Côte de Genève across bridges as well as rotor, and black oxidized rather than polished or blued screws. Handsome and versatile. This is a watch that styles in so many fashions. Obviously, it's beautiful. Obviously, it draws on a fundamental design, the Pi Pan Connie, that is already time-tested. It's also original, as no Pi Pan constellation of the 50s or 60s looked like this externally. It's fluid, it's dynamic, it's modern. It's not a retro watch. It stands on its own four rather lozenge or cushion-shaped lugs. A handsome modern take on a traditional Omega all-purpose chronometer for a man on the go, for sport, for formal occasions, maybe even for him or for her. This is a versatile watch that does it all. See it and make it yours on the Watchbox. And we're back with the Pi Pan Connie, of course glowing beautifully blue. It has a wonderful blue metallic dial with rose gold accents that you simply must see by day in high-res imagery. See those high-res images on our website, thewatchbox.com.